Risk of Rain 2 is one of my favorite flat games. It's a roguelite where you progress through progressively harder stages, while killing hordes of enemies and acquiring random items that make you stronger as you go. Sometimes the stars align and you get a god run, and sometimes you need your skill to carry you through a less ideal one. And since I typically play modded nowadays, I noticed that there was a VR mod for it. I did kinda have my reservations though. I mean, Risk of Rain can be super overwhelming and fast-paced game at times, and I wasn't sure if that would translate well to a virtual reality. But given some of the other flat-to-VR games I played in the past, I figured I might as well give it a shot. So hopefully by the end of the video we'll be able to answer, is Risk of Rain 2 actually fun in VR? So we begin our journey in Mongoose difficulty, trying out one of my favorite classes, the Railgunner. I'm playing in some Milk Run, so I can get a better idea of the base gameplay since it's kind of just a straightforward wave shooter mode. Immediately I notice it's way easier to hip-fire sniper shots since it doesn't actually zoom in like in flat. I somehow managed to get a yellow on my first drop, and then get some good AoE with the gasoline on my second drop. Things are going great. I get a whip for a faster sprint, but then a jellyfish explodes yeeting me off the cliff, reminding me that I installed this mod. I end up doing a redo since I was feeling that run, but ended up getting yeeted yet again on wave 10. I switch it up by choosing Deputy, who's a modded character that's kind of centered around shooting and speed, but I did just try Railgunner, so I actually ended up quitting out just to see how melee would feel in VR instead. I decide out to try Loader first, cause she's bae. Now, I'm glad I'm not the type to get VR sickness because grappling around is a blast. However, getting fireballed isn't, or I guess it kinda is. Having failed before the first item, I try one more time, only to accidentally go a little too hard with the spins. Feeling rage quitty, I decided to switch to the easy baby noob class, Engineer.
Don't worry boys, the Engineer game is here.
It's a modded version that switches out the boring grenade toss mouse one with a shotgun of sorts. That coupled with my bungus turrets, I got to wave 2 and I was feeling bunged out. We easily juice wave 5 and then get an ignition tank to pair with the gasoline we got a little earlier, so things are looking up for this run. Fast forward to stage 10 and things are getting hectic. I can barely see, trying to keep my shields up, but they're getting my turrets down somehow by brute force. And then a beetle pushes my little engineering helmet into the ground. Wanting to try to smack things around as melee again, I try out a modded Paladin character next. Just to answer this particular question, I think melee works a lot better than I thought it would. You can't see your weapon or anything, but basically your attacks just do damage right next to you. It can be kinda hard to see with all the mobs in your face in first person, but if you build up survivability, it doesn't really matter. However, I did not build up any survivability because I died in wave 7. I try out Captain next. I like how his nanobot actually floats around your head. It's cool to see that in first person. The shooting characters definitely feel a lot more attuned to VR since you're pointing and clicking. It's definitely a little easier that way than melee in my opinion. The run seems to go well. I get some crit glasses and even the crit red item, but I forgot I had some IRL stuff to handle, so I had to nuke the run early. When I returned from getting milk and cigarettes, I decided to try out another fun modded character, Rocket. He's basically a soldier from TF2.
Give 'em hell, boys!
I did decide to drop the difficulty down to Rainstorm though, to see if I could get a little further this time. After playing the last few classes, it felt like playing in VR is a lot harder in general because you lose that extra awareness from not being in third person. I managed to clutch the first wave 10 win in VR so far, and feeling ballsy, I tried to pull a 200 IQ item in the storm run, then move on to the next stage. So anyway, I started blasting, and I made it all the way to wave 15 until a sea of flying mobs and a glacial stone golem decided to end my career early. So next up I tried out Rex. No hate on Rex or anything, but I just wasn't feeling him and tapped out on wave 5. Wanting to try a little something different, I chose Shaman. He's another modded character where basically his gimmick is that he summons minions every so often based on his attack speed, and they inherit his items. I managed to wipe floor again and get up to wave 10, where I had the realization that I can just let my minions spawn while AFK for a bit. Coming back from a short intermission, I'm surrounded by about 30 of the little demons. This is when I look at the portal and remember that they actually despawn between ages. Oh well, easy come, easy go. I see a void item and decide to try another 200 IQ item in the storm run, but I choke hard and try to double back to the item instead of going back for a second time, causing me to run out of health before I make it back. Instant karma. I've pretty much tested out all the characters enough at this point that I decided I wanted to see if playing co-op would work in VR, since a large part of Risk of Rain 2 for me is the online multiplayer aspect. Unfortunately though, due to the nature of modding, the other players need to have the same mod packs as you, and you can't just share them via public lobbies either. So I grabbed the lovely Dos Besitos, since I knew I could get her to download the same mods that I was using.
Hi.
I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Ruka.
Oh, okay.
Jesus. I'm just kidding. I mean, I could talk to you like that if you want.
I figured we should try the actual main game mode too, where you get money and search for chests in a large level, and then ultimately summon a boss that takes you to the next stage once they die and you capture the teleporter.
I thought this was supposed to be easy.
Well, it went pretty much as expected. It worked just like flat mode.
I did. I did.
Oh, you did.
Unfortunately, we discovered another mod we had been using, Shared Suite, was for some reason having some sort of conflict with another mod, because any items we picked up didn't actually go to our inventory.
Are we getting items?
Here are items.
Since we figured out co-op works, I decided to try one last thing instead of making her remove the mod, as she had been very helpful in the testing already. I decided to finish out this test by killing Mithrix. And we're gonna get back to the classics, baby. I'm gonna pick Railgunner again like we started with, and I'm gonna bump it back up to Monsoon difficulty. Wait a minute, did I say Mongoose earlier? So we begin our journey in Mongoose difficulty. Anyway, stage 1 goes easy enough. I found a syringe item box, so I burned a couple of the early white items I got to up my attack speed, letting me spam my normal and sniper shots much faster. On stage 2 I spawn in, and it looks like my gun had no texture somehow at first. I find an item grinder, so I end up turning those into crowbars, which do 75% more damage for enemies that are over 90% health, which is pretty GG's for Railgunner since he has such a high one-shot with the sniper shot. Since I couldn't really move around too far in the wave mode, it was nice to really take advantage of my mobility moves. Again, I don't get sick in VR, so this is really fun for me. By boss time, I'm just straight up pumping. I did find a noob shrine earlier, so I get to go through the blue portal to the bazaar. My bazaar is actually modded, so coins perish between stages, so you can't just stock up on them. You basically just get a small chance of getting the bazaar this way if you're lucky enough to get a coin. And if you get more than one in a run, you might be able to get a blue item as well, so this way the blue items aren't so OP. It also gives you added items that you can purchase with the extra money you had from the stage, and I got lucky enough to get a double red somehow. It also has free next stage choices, so I choose Gold Coast. This might be a little OP at this point, but this was in efforts to kind of balance the fact that it's harder in VR in general. Now if you didn't know, Gold Coast is like a rare bonus level that you can get sometimes, where you have to activate some beacons and summon and kill Aurelionite. It was kind of an intense fight, but my sniper shot lets me put great distance between him and I, so eventually I get him down and steal his seed, which makes it so that he gets summoned during the teleporter event to fight on my side, dealing with the small mobs and distracting the boss. Aura and me demolish the fire snake, and he even drops me another yellow item with a 10% chance to spawn AoE fireballs on hit. GG fire snake. On stage 4, I grind a bunch of monies to get the welfare red item, which ended up being a 57 leaf clover. Not super conducive to my build, but it'll do donkey. Aura and me go ham sandwich on the boss stage, which had no actual boss since it was a horde spawn. I'm feeling all OP as get out at this point from getting some amazing drops, so in stage 5 my difficulty timer is probably getting up there, so I mostly just focus on getting item chests that on my way to the teleporter, instead of going out of my way to find most of them. I try to let Aura tank the Grandpappy boss, but he managed to still yeet me off the cliff with his Goku Spirit Bomb. I thought it was going to be the end of the run, but I somehow managed to get spawned far away and cheese him by sniping across the map in safety. Then I just had to outlast the timer and get beamed up. Now, there's something that really hits different seeing this room in VR. You just don't really get a sense of how grandiose it is. One thing I'll note though, the fuzzy shader that's going on this level looks a bit weird in VR. Not a huge gripe because it's playable, but preferably I would alter that if I could. But overall, I feel like this game does actually end up working really well in VR. It obviously skews a little more fun for the shooting characters, but melee wasn't unplayable. It doesn't have motion controls for like reloading, but I'm not sure that it really requires it, being a very arcadey type game anyway. Most of the enjoyment I get out of this game is just pushing as hard as I can go with the random cards you're dealt. Now, I'm not going to say that all VR players should run out and buy this game now because it's so great, but I do think that if you like roguelites or if you played any of the Risk of Rains before, I think that the move to VR does enhance the experience, and you're perfectly capable of getting through all the content in the game if you can stomach the late game speed and the overwhelmingness of the enemies. We get a lot of wave shooters and roguelites in VR, but they always seem to be so short on content to replay through, so I can personally look past all the little flat to VR quirks that this mod has. Now, I could go on about how VR could use a built from the ground game up like this, or derail into comparisons with other games, but the point of this video is just to find out if Risk of Rain 2 is actually fun in VR. And personally, I do think it is. So let's wrap up this stage and show Mithrix who's boss. Never mind, I hate this game.